And now, suspense.
So I'm switching gears a bit here. I wanted to ask you some like fun questions. We
Okay.
have a lot of fun on Instagram, just like going back and forth with all like the dumb stuff that I post. What's a movie from like your childhood that you love that you kind of know hasn't aged well at all? Like you if you were to rewatch it, or that one that you have rewatched and you're just like, this does not hold up at all.
Oh, dang it. Had one loaded for you that has aged well, I think, but maybe it hasn't. Goonies is like the one for me from back in the day. I love Goonies, and I don't know if it's aged well or not because I haven't watched it in a few years, but let me try. Let me try to find one that I know has not.
Or I guess maybe one that you're just like you rewatch and I guess you kind of think like, this isn't as good as I remember it.
Okay, I got it. I remember Fire in the Sky being like the most terrifying movie when I was a kid. And I watched it like a year ago and I was like, damn, this isn't pretty at all. Like, and I remember it being terrifying when I was a kid. And that one does not age well as far as like the horror at all.
Mm-hmm. That one's funny because it just got a release on a Blu-ray and I bought it. Still don't like the probing him and stuff because like there's like the part with like the whole eyeball thing. I have this thing like anything to do with eyeballs and close to your eye, can't do it. So I was just like cringing the whole time, like, oh. But as far as like that whole thing goes, I'm like, I remember this being scarier, but also because like, it takes place in Arizona and I've been to that part of Arizona and that place is kind of scary. It's just wooded area for miles and miles and you can get lost like very easily. So maybe the atmosphere itself is what kind of made it scary for me. Yeah, it's about like an hour or so away from where I am. I think Goonies does hold up. I bought the 4K release of it. I'm like really big into like, physical media and like the 4K and just like getting the best quality out of movie watching. I think Goonies will always just be a classic. It gives you the vibes of just like being young and adventurous, and just even if you never had those types of adventures, you can like live vicariously through that and just always want that. Like you can remember a group of your friends that you had and all like the crazy stuff you used to get into.
Yeah. Speaking of Goonies, I actually worked with Josh Brolin on Only the Brave years ago. Initially, when I auditioned, they pinned me for one of the main 19 firefighters. So it was like, oh wow, I'm going to be working on this movie for 3 months. Well, after they did all the casting, I ended up being a smaller role, but I still got to work directly with him. And in fact, he invited me and a couple other dudes into his trailer for lunch so we could talk about the scene and all this stuff. And he still loves talking about Goonies all these years. Like you assume that like it would be offensive to ask an actor like that how he feels about Goonies to where he is now, but he just loved reliving it. And another thing, one of the coolest, kindest, most grounded actors I've ever been around was Josh Brolin. I mean, he was just a leader of men, just a beautiful soul. I really appreciate it when that happens. When you like, I love this person's work, and then the human being is just as good as their own work. It's a bonus for sure. And he's one of them for sure. One of them.
Yeah, in doing what I do now with this. I've come to go so appreciative of like meeting people and meeting actors and meeting people in the film industry that are just such good people. Like you I guess you kind of tend to lose the side of the fact that these are human beings, and as normal people, we kind of lose sight of the fact that you guys are just regular people. And like even with talking with you on Instagram and stuff, like you're just a normal dude, and I respect that. Did you know a little bit about the hot shots before taking on that, or was that something you learned about later on?
Well, when I knew I needed to study the history of it when I got the audition. So I went back and watched all the documentaries I could find. I actually listened to, there's some videos on YouTube that have the final like 4 or 5 minutes of radio transmission from the actual day. And that process tore me apart, dude. Like hearing their real voices, both sides, the people in the safe part and then the dudes who were in that little horseshoe canyon, everybody knew they were going to die in like the next 10 minutes. So hearing them have a conversation back and forth in those final moments was like, I don't want to say morbid, but it was like it was heartbreaking to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I ran into a guy one morning getting breakfast years after the movie even came out. And he was wearing a hotshot uniform. And I was like, damn, I I just want to tell you, I was in this movie and I studied the whole history of that, the 19 guys. And he said, oh, so-and-so was my roommate in hotshot school. So he was roommates with one of the 19 dudes in that hot crew that died that day. And so that it's interesting when something that I did as an actor collides with my real life like that. I mean, that story was heartbreaking, terrible. But I think pretty well done. The movie was pretty well done, I thought.
Yeah, that's one of those ones. Like I said, that was one too that I knew about. Being from Arizona, like I think everybody knows about them. And when I heard about that movie coming out, I was like, yeah, that seems like a really good thing. There was like a screening for it at this theater locally near me, so we went to go see it. My wife actually had a really hard time watching it. It's totally different when you watch a movie and there's like deaths or tragic things happening, and these are fictional characters, and it's a totally different thing when it's like these were real people and real people from this area that we live in. Like the fact that someone you might know who is a firefighter or somebody in that field probably knew one of those guys.
Totally. Yeah, that whole thing, the art imitating life side of, which one is it, is always tough to deal with. I think it also brought a bit of reverence to my approach to being there as part of it. I knew that even though I wasn't playing one of the 19 guys who died, that I was playing a part in a story that really happened to people. So I think that's something that comes with maturity and growth as a human being and as an actor, is when you're approaching something that's based on true events, show it some respect. Do you know what I mean? Like show it some respect, because I'm sure every family member of every guy that died went and saw that movie and went, okay, this is authentic. This isn't, but I know that Josh spent a lot of time, I think, with the actual families of the guys that died to kind of get a level of reverence where he could make the movie the right way.
I was watching like some of the behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, Josh Brolin and even Jeff Bridges as well. You could tell they put a lot of like time and respect into wanting to tell this story the right way.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful for that reason alone, I think.
One of the movies that I watched as a kid that I rewatched recently, and I was like, I don't like this as much as I thought I would, or I thought I should. And it was a Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Okay.
So like Disney movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. He's like he's a baseball player, and he gets teleported to like medieval times with King Arthur and stuff. So he's like, the fish out of water, and he has rollerblades, and he's like dressed like a baseball player, and everyone's like, why are you looking like that? And I don't know, like I thought for some reason when I was a kid, I loved that movie. I thought it was like so funny. I guess because I always used to place myself into these like child roles, as when I used to watch like The Sandlot or something, I would imagine myself as one of these kids and stuff. And so I watched that and I was like, that would be so cool. Like if I got transported to that, I rewatched it like a month or two ago, and I'm watching and I'm like, this doesn't feel the same. It's not as funny as I thought it was. And it just seems weird. And like, there are things in it where I'm just like, that's very odd and awkward.
You know, what's even worse than that is like, you've probably done this at least with your oldest son. I'll get on a kick where I want to show my son a movie that was like my favorite when I was a kid, and him to love it too. And we're just watching it and he's like rolling his eyes and what is crap, you know what I mean? And it's like that it's like that, the thing about, you get to believe in Santa again when you have your own kids, you know what I mean? It's like, I try to relive these childhood movie moments with my own son, and sometimes it backfires. Sometimes he's like, Dad, I don't know why you ever liked this. This is terrible. I'm just like, no, you have to like it.
Do you have an example of what that is?
I think I tried with Goonies with him, and he just wasn't having it.
No. Yeah. My son's 9, so he's kind of he's in the, so he'll come into my room where I right now, like my movie room, is where we have all the movies and stuff. And he'll be like, can I watch this or this? There are obviously some things where I'm like, no, you can't watch that. But he's very mature for his age, very smart kid. He's earned the right to watch a little bit more mature films. And so that's why I've been trying to get him into, like you said, trying to watch some movies with him that I loved from my childhood. And so far he's been liking everything we've shown. I think there's maybe like one or two things where he just finds goofy, where he's just like, this looks bad. And I think that just comes with like the difference in generations. Like, we grew up watching movies with little to zero CGI, or the CGI that it did have was really bad. And we just accepted it because that's really all they had. And so he's grown up in the generation where CGI is just fantastic and special effects are just like next level. And so we'll watch something older and he'll just look at, stunt work, or he'll look at the CGI and something. He'll be like, that looks really bad. He'll kind of just laugh about it. And I'll have to explain to him, like, it was technology was very limited and this is what they had to work with.
One of the gifts that my son has given to me as far as movies go, I've never been really big into the Marvel universe or anything superhero.
Mm-hmm.
For some, I've always had a little bit of a mental block. My son started me on the Doctor Strange movies, and it has enough of like that Shakespearean quality that goes along with the technology that I can really get into it. Like, there's enough of a palpable story along with all the superhero stuff that I really loved it. I hadn't seen Black Panther until 2 nights ago. My son was like, "You haven't seen this? We're going to watch it." And I was a little bit like, "Okay, whatever." And then I was just glued, I was just totally glued to it. Just for what it was. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a great story, and it's visually pretty stunning and beautiful too. But he's given me the gift of like getting over my own hangups around movies that I just, for some reason, I've had a mental block or not want to watch. And that genre is definitely the one that he's coaxed me into a little bit more.
One of the things I'm really grateful that he does love is I showed him the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he loves it. Like, that was one of the things where I was like, if you don't love the Lord of the Rings, like, I might have to disown you a bit.